and welcome back to the Budget Gourmet. If you're new here, my name is Dan, and I try to help you and your family create delicious recipes, all while still saving a little bit of money. Fall is in the air, or at least I think so. It's definitely getting a lot cooler. I have been loving it to no end because I can wear hoodies and sweatshirts and cover myself up, all of me. And yes, I gestured to all of me, and I'm not sweating profusely. If you didn't know, I always film my intros after I have made the recipe. So, did this recipe turn out great? It turned out okay. There were definitely a few things I would have changed, and I'll probably get into that when I'm doing the voiceover of the video. This recipe is strictly if you have time, patience, endurance, and for me it was a test of perseverance too, to try to sort of fix things that needed to be fixed. But if you have a decent amount of time, I think this recipe in total took me about 2 hours from start to finish. That's including making the bread and letting it rest and everything. This is a perfect recipe for you and your family. This is one of those nice, just homey, let's gather around the table and be together meals. Let's talk about our day. What a better way to start off fall and moving into these fall recipes than with this recipe of honey, butter, chicken curry, and homemade naan bread. So let's just get right into the video. Okay, so first things first, we're going to get our bread started. I got this recipe off of TikTok, and I will link it either down in the description or put it somewhere on the screen. Starting out with 1 cup of warm water, I have 1 teaspoon of sugar and 1 teaspoon of active dry yeast. I'm going to give that a little mix, and I'm pretty sure the lady said to let it sit for about 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, I'm adding 2 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, and then I'm going to be adding a teaspoon of salt, and you're just going to start mixing. As you're mixing, your dough is going to be very sticky. I added a tablespoon of olive oil, a pretty big tablespoon, and I also oiled my hands, started forming a ball. Once your dough is formed and into a ball, you can cover this up, and we're going to let this sit in a warm area for about 30 minutes or longer. And while this is over here doing its thing, we are going to be moving on to our mise en place and getting our ingredients ready. Starting out, I'm using 2 packages of boneless chicken thighs, about 3 pounds worth. I have garam masala powder. I have some cumin, paprika, jasmine rice, this was about 3 cups worth, whole milk Greek yogurt, make sure you get whole milk, heavy whipping cream, I have some salt, some pepper, I have garlic, I also have some fresh ginger as well. I'm going to be using 1 can of 28 ounces of crushed tomatoes. And I have 2 small onions here. I have cilantro, and not pictured here, but I am using butter and honey as well. I'm going to start out by honing my knife edge, and we're just going to cube up these chicken thighs. Now, all you're looking for here is to just try to cube them up into bite-sized pieces. You could do bigger or larger, but I typically like to do it this way, so they're all sort of nice, even cubes, or try to get and do the best you can. Once all of our chicken is cubed up, you can move all of your chicken to a bowl, or I had one of these pans lying around. I'm going to generously salt and pepper my chicken to make sure everything is seasoned nicely. And then now comes all of our spices. I'm just going to add a little layer of cumin, and the main spice we're going to be focusing on is our garam masala. I'm going to be add a hefty amount of garam masala and a little bit of our paprika here. Make sure you add enough Greek yogurt or whole milk yogurt of your choice to be able to mix all of this chicken in and make sure it's all thoroughly coated in that yogurt mixture. I added some more garam masala and paprika because I feel like our yogurt hadn't changed color too much. I really wanted that orangish golden brown color in our yogurt to make sure all of the seasonings were really getting in there. I just covered this up and made sure I let this marinate for at least 30 to 45 minutes, but ideally you should let it marinate overnight. That's just going to intensify the flavor. Next, we're going to get started on our mise en place and just cutting our ingredients. Cutting onions here, following the natural lines and cutting them into slivers. Put all of these in a bowl. Next, I'm going to be chopping up some fresh ginger here. Now, if you can imagine the ginger as garlic cloves, I probably used about 2 to 3 garlic cloves worth of ginger. You can use a spoon to get rid of all of that skin off of the ginger, but I was lazy, so I just hacked at it with my knife, but the result's the same. You just don't want any of that skin in there. So once our ginger is chopped, I'm going to transfer all of that to a bowl, and I'm using probably about the equivalent of 4 large garlic cloves here, just doing another rough chop, crushing them so it releases the flavor, and also transferring them to our bowl. And this is really the end of our mise en place here. All of our ingredients are chopped and ready to go. I'm going to put my pan on a medium heat, go in with a nice glug of oil. And you remember when I said that I made a few mistakes during the cooking of this? Well, this is one of them. I put too much chicken in the pan. Now what this does is it has a tendency to allow the chicken to steam rather than to crisp up. So my chicken was being cooked, but there was a lot of moisture in the pan, so my chicken wasn't really getting that nice golden brown color. So I drained some of the liquid and it started to crisp up pretty well. During my second batch, it just turned out a lot better, and you're really wanting to see a nice char on that chicken, just like this. But this only happened during my second batch, once I didn't put as much chicken in. You really want some space so that heat is able to get every part of the chicken and really develop all of that beautiful flavor. And now it's time for the second faux pas. I added my vegetables once my chicken was out of my pan, but I didn't reduce the heat. Or I could have deglazed the pan. What did I do? Neither. So as I'm stirring my vegetables, I'm noticing that all of those beautiful brown flavorful bits at the bottom of my pan were burning. So as I'm scraping this up, thankfully I was able to scrape up and just remove that flavoring, but I was a little bit sad and upset at myself because it was such a rookie mistake. I could have just reduced the heat or done a number of different things, but you live and you learn from my mistakes. So once I got most of the burnt pieces out, my vegetables were cooking very nicely. All you're looking for here is for your vegetables to just get soft and develop a little bit of color. I added a little bit more garam masala, and we're going to add our can of crushed tomatoes here. We're going to give this a good mix, and then we're going to let this cook down a little bit. While that is cooking, we're going to be cutting some cilantro here, but just the stems. We are going to be adding this to our mixture, and it's going to be adding a little bit of nice freshness to our sauce. I'm going to be transferring our sauce to our blender here, along with those cilantro stems. Everything's going to be blended up, so the stems are a great use for this. I'm sort of following the Gordon Ramsay version of our butter chicken. I'm going to be adding some heavy cream here. You can add as little or as much as you want, and you don't have to worry if it's a little bit thick. You can always add more heavy cream later if you would like to. Which is something I did not do. I didn't blend this mixture enough. Another mistake. I'm just killing it, ladies and gentlemen. We're just going to be transferring this mixture into our pan along with our chicken. I cooked the chicken for about 6 to 7 minutes, so it was probably about 70% cooked because we were going to finish it in our sauce at this time. I'm going to make sure my chicken is fully mixed in and submerged, and I'm just going to be adding a little bit of honey and our butter because it is butter chicken. I'm going to reduce the heat to low and just let this simmer away so all of those flavors can sort of penetrate the chicken and our chicken can finish cooking as well. While our chicken continues to cook, it is the perfect time to work on our naan bread. I'm going to start out by flouring my cutting board and transferring our dough, which has risen, onto our cutting board. If you couldn't tell by now, I am not a professional chef, nor am I a baker. I just did my best. From the video, the lady suggested that you just try to work the bread a little bit and then form it into balls and roll it out flat. And if it started to get sticky, just add a little bit of flour and that should help. I'm just trying to follow instruction. I had formed about 10 little dough balls, but I realized that it was making the naan bread a little bit too small, so I actually had to just double up, so I was left with about 5 dough balls. I was sort of treating this like a pizza crust and trying to make it as flat as possible, because here's something awesome, I forgot I didn't have a rolling pin. So I just tried to do the best with what I had, and that happened to be my hands. Once our dough is all flat and formed, I'm just going to be greasing up our nonstick pan, putting it in there and letting it cook for a couple minutes, and then once it's a beautiful golden brown, flipping it over and repeating the process. And that is really it. It's now just time to plate up. I'm just going to be ladling my curry over some beautiful jasmine rice and topping it off with a little bit of heavy cream, some cilantro, and our beautiful naan bread. Thank you guys so much for watching and for sticking with me through all these trials and tribulations. Please learn from my mistakes, and I hope that if you make this recipe, it turns out a lot better for you. But all in all, this wasn't bad. I'll see you next week with another video. Goodbye!